So I'm currently developing an immersive opera, which is based on the writings and themes around my own empirical connections to post-humanism and transhumanist discourse. And from that premise is from me having actually a brain injury and disability, which left me with deafness and severe tinnitus. Post-humanism deconstructs sociological narratives such as the Anthropocene and the impact that humans have inflicted onto the earth and ultimately ourselves. So from this kind of premise, I wanted to bring in, to take a post-human punk perspective of opera, and by bringing people who are from working class backgrounds, disabled backgrounds, and ethnic minority backgrounds, and employing people within this experience to talk about what it means to be human in transhumanist discourse within society, with being disabled and being from these backgrounds, because opera as a thing is not accessible to the working classes. It never has been, and a lot of and art, even the art itself. So for me, I really want to kind of build a social enterprise which uses using this platform to talk about these discourses that are actually affecting the world that we're in now. Hence posthumanism and transhumanism. These are not just confined to the realms of academia. These have to be brought into the populace. And explored, because it impacts all our lives. And within the opera, it's set within an alien landscape, but fundamentally, it's all about what it is to live in a technological world as it is now. And the opera is in a two-part piece. So one piece is a physical performance, and within that, it focuses on the senses. So I've kind of went from the idea of the four humours. And within this opera, you're not just a passive observer, you're actually taking part, which will be using biofeedback, VR, and other forms of sensory technology, which will influence how you interact with the narrative. The narrative is a non-linear narrative, but it kind of follows a Marcel Proustian idea of memory. And that's relating back to my own idea of having a brain injury, where I had to basically get back my own memories and through the senses of tinnitus and stuff like that. But also the opera is based in the metaverse and is a video game as well, which will incorporate sensory technologies such as audio spatial, so people can see what it's like to actually live in a world if you were blind, if you were hard of hearing. So I'm kind of setting out these tasks to not just talk about, this kind of Ubermensch idea, but fundamentally what it is now to be human. So this is kind of what I'm exploring within the opera, as a narrative and of what we're talking about now. So this is kind of what I'm working on. So at the moment, we've kind of been in dialogue with the Museum of Crypto Art, Cyborg Nest, also Subpack as well. So people who are actually leading the way in sort of haptic technologies to incorporate this. And this is kind of where I am at the moment. This is kind of what I'm in development. Plus, I've just finished writing the 2 scripts. So a lot of what will happen in terms of technology will be based on what I've written, and the scenarios that I've created will inform the technology, or the technology will inform the scenarios that I've set out for the opera. So this is kind of what I'm working at now.
Amazing. Thanks so much. As that was quite a short presentation, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about the scripts and the narratives?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, I touched on a bit about the 4 humours. So within not all of the opera, it's not just like one part is focused on sensory. So the whole thing has got people who are performing, and it obviously will be people from these various backgrounds. There'll be kind of sign language encoded into when they're singing. So there's all about communication. There's all this communication levels going on. And then obviously with the sensory technology, it'd be interesting. What we're fascinated about is how people who are blind, how are they, how they never get to see an opera. They've never seen an opera, as far as I'm aware. So how is the experience going to kind of impact their experiential of this kind of, of this scenarios that I'm creating? And then within the 4 humours part, this is a kind of a very specific parts where 4 of the sections are split into bits that are using taste, using memory, using using kind of different ideas of like mental health. So there's kind of like a scenario in it is when for people who are deaf. So like when you come in, it's empowering people who are actually using sign language. So it flips. So the people who don't use sign language are having to decode the message that's given in front of them. So kind of putting people through these kind of scenarios to understand what it's like to live in a world, not augmented, So it's kind of exploring this kind of these ideas within that.